The moment we stepped into the dining hall, Nagakura and Harada looked up at us.
おめえら遅えんだよ。この俺の腹の高鳴りどうしてくるんだ。
新八さん、それってただ腹が鳴ってるだけだろ。困るよね、こういう単純な人。
お前らが来るまで食い始めるのを待っててやった俺様の寛大な腹に感謝しやがれ。
Aw, how nice of you.
新八、それ寛大な心だろ。ま、いつものように自分の飯は自分で守れよ。
今日も相変わらず成功夕飯だよな。というわけで隣の晩ご飯突撃だ。
Look at me sitting with them. It's almost as if they didn't try to kill me or want to kill me. We're all good friends.
弱肉強食の時代俺様がいただくぜ。
Just one of the bros.
ちょっと新八さん、なんで俺のおかずばっか狙うかな。
That is a lot of rice.
それは体の大きさだ。大きいやつにはそれなりに食う量が必要なんだよ。
じゃあ育ち盛りの俺はもっともっと食わないとね。
毎回こんなんで済まないな。
I've gotten used to it.
慣れとは恐ろしいものだな。このおかず、俺がいただく。
Oh, why aren't you taking anything?
うん。あんまり腹いっぱいに食べるとバカになるしね。
おいおい、バカとは聞き捨て。だが、その飯いただく。
どうぞ。僕はお酒をちびちびしてればいいし。
じゃあ、俺も酒にするかな。
ただ飯とか気にしないで、お腹いっぱい食べるんだよ。
I know, I can't help but feel a little bad though. Wait, why should I feel bad? I have to eat, don't I?
気にしたら負けだ。自分の飯は自分で守れ。
Oh, okay. It was actually rather fun to have dinner with such a strange group of men. I'd eaten alone for so long that to do so with others was frightening and exhilarating all at once.
最初からそうやって笑ってろ。俺らもお前を悪いようにはしない。
That's not what y'all was saying before. That's not what y'all was saying earlier in the game. Harada. His mouth curled up into an honest smile of his own. Had I really looked so down, perhaps they were all trying to cheer me up. I wasn't quite sure how to feel. There was a part of me that felt bad, while another part felt a certain amount of joy. Almond joy. The joy seemed to be winning out, however, and I was smiling to myself when Inoue stepped in from the hall.
ちょっといいかいみんな。
As usual, his voice was warm, but in his eyes was a level of solemnity I'd never seen before, at least during our thus far brief acquaintance. The warmth of the room disappeared almost immediately. He totally ruined the moment. Thanks a lot, Inoue.
大阪にいる土方さんから手紙が届いたんだが、三男さんがタイム中に重傷を負ったらしい。
Oh, not Sanan. What? They all went quiet. Inoue continued. Sanan had gone to investigate a report of several Ronin harassing a cloth merchant. He'd managed to drop them off, but not before being wounded by the Ronin. Is he going to be all right?
相当の深手だと手紙に書いてあるけど、傷は左腕とのことだ。剣を握るのは難しいが。
Oh, thank goodness. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding, but it seemed that the rest of the room didn't share my relief.
数日中には豚所へ帰り着くんじゃないかな。それじゃ、私は近藤さんと話があるから。
He turned as he spoke, his last words delivered over his shoulder, and he was gone. It was Saito who eventually broke the awkward silence.
刀は片腕で容易に扱えるものではない。最悪、三男さんは二度と真剣を震えまい。
Can't he just Zorro it though and put the sword in his mouth? Oh. He can't? At last I understood. Yes, Sanan was alive, but without the ability to wield a sword. Sanan the man had survived the encounter with the Ronin, but Sanan the warrior had not. That's messed up.
片腕で扱えば刀の威力は損なわれる。そしてつばぜり合いになれば確実に負ける。
Of course. Fighting with one hand would be fighting at half strength. Even a skilled warrior would have trouble. Okita sighed. Ugh.
薬でも何でも使ってもらうしかないですね。三男さんも納得してくれるんじゃないかな。
掃除めったなこと言うもんじゃねえ。幹部が新選組入りしてどうするんだよ。
Huh? Wait, that didn't make any sense. But what do you mean corpse? Isn't that the Shinsengumi? I didn't understand. What was the corpse? If it wasn't the Shinsengumi itself. But the way they said it, they couldn't have been referring to the Shinsengumi.
普通の新選組ってこう書くだろ。新選組は千の字を手辺にして。
You mean like corporate?
平助
Is the corpse short for like corporate? Or is somebody about to call corporate on you? Huh? Before I could move, Harada was on his feet and halfway across the room. I barely had time to gasp before he drove his fist into Hesuke. Totally uncalled for. Super uncalled for. Hesuke, are you alright? Nagakura sighed.
やりすぎだぞ佐野。英介もこいつのことを考えてやってくれ。
I mean, let me guess, I heard something I wasn't supposed to, but at this point I've already heard more than enough of the things that I wasn't supposed to hear. Like, it is what it is. It was clear Hesuke had told me something he shouldn't have, but what? And did it really matter? Like, at this point, I have so much information. I know so many things I shouldn't know. Like, just deal with it.
悪かったな。
After a moment, Harada gave the younger man a curt nod of apology, and Hesuke responded with a quick pained smile.
いや、今の俺も悪かったけど、たく佐野さんはすぐ手が出るんだからな。
On top of that, they watching me like a hawk. Like, okay, so you tell me all this stuff, and what am I gonna do? Run away and tell the enemy? How? How? His punch had hit with enough force to knock a lesser man out cold, but Hesuke seemed only slightly the worse for wear. It had never been clearer that I was not among normal people.
今の話は君に聞かせられるギリギリのところだ。
Ah, you act like I care.
これ以上のことは教えられねえんだ。気になるだろうけど、何も聞かないでほしい。
Well, fine, I don't want to know anything anyway. Like, I don't care. His voice was friendly enough, but his eyes gave his words a cold weight that made me feel uncomfortable. Like, I really don't care. I don't care. Tell me nothing. I don't care. The less I know, the better. The heck with y'all. Y'all keep your little secrets. But nothing. How was I supposed to just drop it? Just drop it. Doom, 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 doom.
新選組っていうのはかわいそうな子たちのことだよ。
Okita's voice was flat, emotionless. His eyes were grim, and there was a sudden chill, melancholy. I can't say that. Melancholy? I can totally say that word. I can. Okay. His eyes were grim, and there was a sudden chill, melancholy about him. I couldn't bring myself to say anything more. Thankfully, Nagakura stepped in to break the silence.
お前は何も気にしなくていいんだって。だからそんな顔するなよ。
I was only a guest in their house, not a warrior of the Shinsengumi. I didn't need to know the truth behind whatever secrets the Shinsengumi kept. I'd known that from the beginning. That knowledge was little comfort, however.
忘れろ。
I know I'm not one of y'all.
深く踏み込めばお前の生き死ににも関わりかねん。
I bit my lip and kept silent. The wall between us was almost a physical thing, and it was far too large an obstacle for me to defeat easily. I finished my dinner in sad silence, excused myself, and returned to my room. I had a great deal to think about. The Shinsengumi, I knew of the Shinsengumi, of course. Their name meant Elite Volunteer Corps. But this corps they'd mentioned, it seemed to be something different. So Sanan is a part of the Shinsengumi, but he shouldn't be part of the corps? The way they'd said it, it seemed as if this corpse was another entity inside the Shinsengumi. Arg. No, I wasn't supposed to think about these things. I was only going to get myself in trouble if I stuck my nose where it didn't belong. If I saw or heard the whole thing, I could even end up dead. If I die, I'll have a hard time looking for my father. Yeah, you really, yeah. Really, that's the only issue. If I die, how will I find him? Really, that's the only problem with that scenario. Just, yep. There were people who cared about me, and my death would no doubt sadden them. Exactly that, yeah. People care about you. That too. Like, it's not just about finding your dad. People care about you, man. As for these people that care about me, where are they? I have not seen them, but that's fine. With that in mind, I did my best to put the day's events out of my head and climbed onto my thin futon. July 1864. We are just getting through these months, aren't we? It was later that day that Hijikata called for me. Excuse me. I had been relieved to find Okita and Hesuke had been summoned along with me. A private conversation with only myself and Hijikata would have been cause for a significant case of nerves. I was still trying to puzzle out what to say when Hijikata began to speak, his voice cold as tempered steel. Really? His announcement was so sudden that I found I couldn't contain my enthusiasm. Hijikata, however, retained his composure. I mean, that second part, and die when they say die, no. Definitely no. Jump when they say jump, like that's one thing, but the whole die when they say die thing, that's the thing I'm really gonna have to just kind of gracefully bow out. And I can't really agree to that part. But yes, sir, sure, whatever you say, but yeah. At last, I would be able to go outside. I would finally be able to begin searching for my father. My answers wouldn't show themselves immediately, I knew, but at least I was free to look for them.
Soji, Heisuke, 今日の巡察はお前らの隊だったな。
なるほどね。だから当番の俺らが呼ばれたってわけか。
The confusion that had been on his face since I'd entered lifted at last.
でも今回は俺より掃除向きじゃないかな。今日は掃除の1番組が昼の巡察を担当だろ。
平助の8番組は夜担当だし、夜より昼が安全だっていうのは僕も同じ意見。
He nodded at Hesuke and gave me a quick wink. Wink.
でも逃げようとしたら殺すよ。老子に絡まれても見捨てるけどいい？
I mean, if I see danger, I will run. You ain't gotta worry about me. He wasn't being serious, but Hijikata turned his cold glare on Okita and frowned.
いいわけねえだろうがバカ。何のためにお前に任せると思ってんだ。
Okita's only response was a short snort of a laugh. I won't run. Yeah, I won't run. I knew he wasn't being serious, but I couldn't stand to keep my mouth shut. When I came here, we made a deal. I promised. The Shinsengumi would help me find my father, and I would keep quiet and not run away. And I still wanted to find him, just as much as I had the day I first met the Shinsengumi. My character all tough. I'll keep my promise. So please, keep yours. I gave Okita a short bow, never taking my eyes off his face. Oh my goodness, she toughened up. The smirk that had been on his face when I'd begun had shrunk to something smaller, more than a little awkward. And more than a little awkward.
少しからかいすぎたかな。でも何が起きるかわからないのは本当だから。
Well, darn it, I underestimated her too. Just in the blink of an eye, she's all brave now. She won't run. She's standing up to y'all. She's like, I'm gonna keep y'all secret. I'll keep my promise. Y'all keep yours.
危険を承知でついてくるっていうなら、僕の一番組に同行してくれて構わないよ。
Even I knew that Kyoto was not safe. But I didn't care. I had to find my father. At that moment, any possible danger seemed immaterial.
長州の連中が不穏な動きを見せている。本来ならお前を外に出せる時期じゃない。
He seemed to be almost talking to himself, but his tone was stern and thoughtful. The soldiers of the Chosu domain were part of the imperial... I cannot read. The soldiers of the Chosu domain were part of the Imperial Nationalist Party. They had increasingly been turning to force in their pursuit of these goals. The Shinsengumi, on the other hand, were loyal to the shogun. Since their masters were at odds, the Shinsengumi and the Chosu domain were enemies. It occurred to me that the increased activity of the Chosu domain had likely made it difficult for the Shinsengumi to shoulder a burden such as me. Why are you giving me permission to leave the compound at a time like this then? Hijikata's face hardened and he looked away.
江戸の家にも帰ってねえらしいし、今日の街中で報道さんらしい人物を見たっていう証言も上がっている。それに半年近くも辛抱させたしな。機会を見送り続けたんじゃ、報道さん探しもこのまま進まねえだろう。
I'm glad he understands that. It's not healthy to be cooped up in here all the time. It wasn't what I expected to hear from him. He was right that they'd postponed my search for my father for quite some time. What I hadn't expected was that he would give any thought to my feelings on the matter. Thank you very much. I bowed as I spoke, not sure what else I could do to express my gratitude. Hijikata only turned back to his work.
それに今は腹を壊してる大使も多いしな。俺らも万全の状態じゃないし。
Hesuke's joking didn't seem to appeal to Hijikata, who only frowned more deeply. Well, it had been awfully hot lately. And it certainly had been. Day after day, the sun burned down on Kyoto from a cloudless sky, and all of the rooms in the compound were so humid that I felt dizzy as soon as I stepped inside. I had heard that the heat had been too much for some of the Shinsengumi soldiers, and they'd taken ill.
とにかく俺は許可を出してやる。行くか行かないかはお前が好きに判断しろ。
Finally, I'm out of this joint. All right, about to get some fresh air. About to touch grass. I sat there for a moment and considered my options. There was something in his words and demeanor that told me he didn't want me to leave the compound. That's his problem. Still, if I was with Okita or Hesuke, I had no doubt that I'd be safe and well protected. On the other hand, my presence could easily be an undue burden to them. What was I to do? Leave! Oh my gosh! The streets were full packed with people! Nothing strange in a busy city, of course, but I could feel my heart beating faster all the same.
はしゃぎすぎ。巡察に同行してるんだってこと忘れないでね。
His wry smile was a friendly warning, but I shrunk back, cowed, and looked back up at him meekly. The city is just so busy. I guess I just couldn't help myself. Getting worked up over a busy city street was a silly thing for anyone to do, and we both knew it. but I'd been inside for so long, just the sight of crowds was enough to get my blood pumping. I mean, what didn't he say it was like nearly half a year? That's a long time to stay inside and like not go out.
まあ、祇園祭りも近いしね。街が浮き立ってるのは僕も否定しないけど。
Like, even if you're the type of person where you don't really like to go outside, it's healthy to go out and get some type of air, right? Like, I'm not saying you have to stay out all day, or you just a little bit of air, the little walk around the block or whatever, you know.
でも、上位ハロー士たちの動きが怪しいのは本当だから、僕たちから離れて勝手に動くのだけはなしね。
Okay. I watch myself and I watch you too, Okita, because I'm thinking about your route. We were walking down Kyoto's largest street, accompanied by the First Division. No one came within a few yards of us as we walked. They stepped away the moment their eyes caught the bright blue of the Shinsengumi jackets. Even the people of Kyoto feared the Shinsengumi. Excuse me. I paused every so often to ask some of the less intimidated passerby if they might have seen my father. I'm looking for someone. He's in his 40s and speaks with an Edo accent. His head is shaved, but he looks friendly. He's a doctor too. After several regretful apologies, I came across someone who claimed to have seen a man matching my description. Oh, thank you, villager. As he spoke, he pointed towards a store selling wood and charcoal. Thank you so much. Of course, I told myself it could be someone who only looks like my father. Could have been Mr. Clean, like who knows? Then again, perhaps it was my father. Maybe Mr. Clean was my father. Okita caught my eye and gave me a stern look. He opened his mouth, presumably to reprimand me, when... The cry went up from one of the Shinsengumi soldiers, and Okita turned, his mouth tightening into a thin line.
ああ、よりにもよってこんなところで騒ぎを起こすなんてね。
His hand dropped to his sword as he ran toward the commotion. Townsfolk screamed and ran like leaves before a gale. But whoa! In the sudden press of fleeing citizens, I found myself pulled away from Okita. For a moment I panicked, but soon realized that perhaps it was the best. It was for the best. I'd stay close. If I'd stayed close, he would have been forced to keep half his attention to me. I didn't want to distract him, so I ran to a nearby alley to watch. Once the situation was resolved, I could make my way back to the First Division. Huh? I paused for a moment. A strange man was inviting me into his store. Not strange on the face of it, perhaps, but I had been warned many times to be on my guard. I was about to politely refuse when I realized which store it was. The one the man earlier had pointed to. Excuse me, but is this Masu's? He nodded. Great. You see, I'm looking for someone in... What? But there was a mad scramble for the door, and in a moment, the store was empty of customers. What? True, I had been accompanied to Shinsengumi, but the reaction of the store's customers seemed excessive. I'm not the Shinsengumi. I was just hanging with him.
君って本当に運がないよね。ある意味こいつらも僕もだけど。
He gave a small, unconcerned shrug and leapt through the door of the shop. Masu's exploded with the sounds of swordplay, with men swearing and scrambling across furniture for position. What? What on earth had just happened? Huh?